Good afternoon. So today I'm going to be teaching everyone here on YouTube how to create one of these little knife leashes so that you can easily pull it out of your pocket and it just folds into your pocket like that when you're not using it. This one's a little bit different. It has some little extra features and I will go over that later. Okay, so we're going to be using this little Gerber folding knife for an example. This one doesn't actually have a lanyard hole, so we're just going to go through the clip, and that's okay because it'll be really hard to get that paracord to come out around the clip, and this is just for demonstration purposes. Anyway, also we're going to be using this little Brigade QM 550 cord. It says on the back, even though it says survival cord on here, it literally says on the back not to use for survival situations where you might need to do not use 550 survival cord for rappelling, climbing, or any life supporting activity. So this is more for the functionality of pulling it out of your pocket. If you want something that you can unravel to tie yourself off the end of a cliff or something, or pull your car with, then get real 550 cord. Also, so you need some of that, right? And then you also need just like a regular little big lighter. All right, so most people do the Cobra knot a little bit differently. I do it this way that I have developed specifically for the ability to measure and determine the length of this knife leash before you actually start weaving. And so what I do is you just start off with a little bit of paracord. You put it through whatever lanyard hole or loop that you're going to be putting it through. In this case, it's just the clip. We probably want it to be about as wide as our hand usually, but you can make it longer or shorter depending on your own personal preference. I'm going to start off at this length, but you can also trim as you go, so it's better to have too much than too little. So we're going to go ahead and cut it right here and melt the end with our other knife that we've already got a leash on. And that is just to keep it from getting unraveled as we are moving along. We're just going to melt it until it gets nice and gooey. And then I usually like to just use the side of the lighter because it's kind of a cold metal surface, not really cold, but you know, colder than my fingers, just to get it to melt on nice flat surface. Also, you can put just like a regular overhand knot in there to kind of secure it and keep these ends where you want them. Just get it adjusted and get them even. And then you're going to want to tie a square knot on the end, so that's left over right and then right over left, and that makes a square knot just to start. And just pull it tight. One important thing to note is that with this length, as you are weaving the Cobra knot on here, if you're keeping it nice and tight, it's actually going to stretch this out, so it'll be a little bit longer than what I have here now. And that's probably what I'm going to want anyways, because right now it's about perfectly the size of my fist, but as I go along, it's going to give me a little bit extra on top of that, which is nice to have, just so you can get it out of there more quickly and easily. The other thing is you're going to take another piece of paracord, which this doesn't really go along with the way that they normally teach you how to do this Cobra knot, but take another piece of paracord, make it twice as long as what you already have there. So I'm going to take the paracord, I'm going to measure it, and then I'm going to measure it twice, and then give it a little extra because you can always trim it afterwards, right? So we'll just go ahead and cut that. Melt the ends, and we'll start our Cobra knot. And these don't have to be perfectly pretty right now, or whatever you want to call it. They don't have to be perfectly dressed up, because later on, when we do this, we're going to finish this and melt them again after we've cut them off and trimmed them. Okay, so something I forgot to mention is that you can also make these two different colors this way. So we could have made this black or green or whatever color if you want, like a fluorescent orange or whatever, so it's easier to find your knife, glow in the dark, whatever they have now. So you can actually do a two-tone this way as well, but I'm going to start going over the Cobra knot. And there's other videos out there that go over the Cobra knot, so if you just want to get to this point and then do the Cobra knot over the top of what you have and not learn from me, that's fine. So you want to place the knife in a orientation that's easy for you to kind of have it consistent, and then you're going to take your other piece of paracord here and you want to just lay it behind it, and then you're going to even it out, make sure it's nice and even, pull it up, get it in the middle, and then you're going to tie an overhand knot, just a regular overhand knot, single knot, whatever you want to call it. There's a lot of different names, but there's proper names as well. If you want to learn those, I'm sure there's a billion videos about that as well. And just dress it up, get it in the center as best as possible. And that's close enough. So I'm going to pull this up nice and tight up to my other knot so that everything's tight. The tighter it is, the tighter it's going to stay. It's going to loosen up over time, so you want to start off with it nice and solid. So you can start on either side, it doesn't really matter. And what I do is I call it making a P, because my last name starts with a P. But generally, I'm going to put this over here to support it, to keep it from falling over. And I'm just going to take this right hand side or left, doesn't matter, and I'm going to form it into the shape of a P. I'm going to go under this shorter piece, put this under, and then I'm going to take my second piece over here, go under that, right? And then I'm going to take the end of my second piece that I just did, and I'm going to put it through that P. And make sure that this stays where it was, which this is now going over the top of the shorter piece that's already been tied on. So that's the beginning of your Cobra knot. That's your very first rendition of it. So now that I did the P on the left side last time, I'm going to go over here and do it on the right side. The knife kind of flipped when I did that, but that's fine. So I'm going to do it again, do the P on this side underneath. I'm going to bring this one underneath, and then I'm going to go through here. Pull it nice and tight, and make sure that you dress the knot up towards the knife nice and tight so it looks like that. Otherwise you have a little gap there and it'll just keep growing. If you want to see more of the cordage underneath, then you can leave that gap there, but I would not recommend it. The tighter it is, the more cordage that you're going to get in there as well, and this is for survival emergency purposes as well. So if you did need to cut this, you could get more length out of it, but if not, then it's just a leash for your knife. One thing that I've not seen very often, I'm not sure if that's already been explained or not, but you can actually turn this into a twist, like what you see here on this other knife. And I find that to be much more easily gripped and identified as something in your pocket. Or, you know, I actually once made a handle for one of my backpacks this way, that I found very convenient and, you know, just a lot easier to identify and grip. So in order to make the twist, instead of doing the P on alternating sides as you're doing this, you just continually do that shape on the same side, and it will just begin rotating. So as I'm doing this, I'm just doing it again and again on the same side, and it gets a little more difficult as you run out of paracord or it gets shorter. But if you keep doing it on the same side, as you can see, it will just start to twist and rotate as you are weaving. And this one, it looks like we're probably going to run out and we're not going to get a full rotation, but that's fine. And we also have to keep in mind that this shorter piece is stretching as we go. So we're going to make sure it's nice and tight. Dress it up every time. Pull this tight. See, that's that gap I was talking about earlier. So you have to dress the knot, press it down, and then just continue to weave it as it gets really short. You have to be more careful, but Sometimes you have to maybe use a pair of pliers or your teeth to pull it tight. My mom would probably frown upon me for doing that. But eventually you'll finish up and you'll end up with a nice little knife leash. And make sure it's really tight, and you'll have something that you can easily identify in your pocket as your knife leash, so that you can pull your whole knife out of your pocket very quickly when you need it. This is has a tactical purpose, it has a practical purpose, has all kinds of purposes, because you don't want to accidentally pull your knife out in the wrong place, offend anybody, scare anybody. Also, there's a technique to tightening this knot as you're weaving this, so that it actually tightens the knot up, that I'll show you. So as you get towards the end, if you have extra here, which you might, or you probably will, because this is stretching as you are tying this, and you're keeping it dressed up tight and sort of squeezing and extending it as you're going along by tying this Cobra knot nice and tight. What you want to do is you want to come back to your square knot, and you're going to loosen it up, and you're going to retie it tight up against where your weave is before you run out of your side strings that you're tying the Cobra knot with. Because what that'll do is it'll actually begin to lock it against itself, and it'll make everything nice and tight on the end of this so that it doesn't come undone. So we're going to tie our square knot again, left over right, pull it through, and then right over left. And it gets kind of technical here because everything's short and you're just working with very little string, or 550 cord, whatever they want to call it. So we're gonna finish off our Cobra knot here and tighten it up against this, which will pull that all tight, and then we're gonna cut these ends off and melt them. So this is the last sort of pull through right here, and I've got it lined up. Everything's kind of short. It helps if you just go extra, have like a whole bunch of extra 550 cord, and then you can trim it afterwards. But I like to not waste, so I kind of measure everything beforehand. So we're gonna pull this nice and tight here, and that's gonna pull it up against my square knot and lock everything in really nice and tight. So as you see, it's all coming together pretty nicely. And I'm just gonna pull it tight with my teeth. Once again, my mom would probably be upset with me because she told me not to chew on plastic or anything that might hurt my teeth, but here you go. Sometimes you gotta do what you gotta do. So then we're just gonna go through and cut all these tails off, and then we're gonna melt them and finish off our little knife leash here. You want to get them as close as possible to where they're actually going to terminate. So be careful with your fingers. Don't chop your fingers while doing this, or with adult supervision, or just have them cut it for you and melting the ends for you if you are not an adult already. Okay, so see how everything's all nice and short, pretty close to where it's going to terminate. We're just going to take our lighter and melt all these, and then press them in to the 550 cord like so. I find that it's nice when it is smashed in like that and it sort of mushrooms out. That way it can't give you pulled back through as you're trying to utilize this. That's like the last thing that you want, is this thing to come apart in your pocket. So I'll try to get that to where you can see it really well. Just melt it really good and then press it in. Some people are not going to like the aesthetics of this because it's melted and it's black and burnt and whatever, and messed up looking. But as time goes on, it's going to wear a little bit. It'll take off a lot of that melted appearance, and it'll look better. I mean, it's going to get dirty anyway. So you can have a pretty knife, but then you're not really using it the way that it's intended, I think. I think knives are tools just like any other weapon that are meant to be used, and you can clean and maintain it and bring it back to pretty condition as you go. So this is pretty much what your finished product should look like that. Here's another example. This one here. This one's a little longer for different reasons. Longer knife, bigger knife leash. Again, this one has the extra long length on it. It's a green. And this one actually I have done differently so that I could use this as a like a hand guard sort of thing. So I've got extra length on this and I've pulled it through. And then that way, as I unfold the knife, I can put this over and open it and then lock it in through the hole here. Twist it, put the knot through, and that becomes a little extra security on my hand so that if I'm using this and it somehow gets flung off my hand, or if I release it, it still kind of stays on my hand, just to give a little extra. Or if I'm cutting something and my hand swings over and hits it, it'll protect my fingers a little bit, whatever sort of purpose that you can imagine for that, or it just looks cool. So this concludes our little short knife leash video. If you have any questions or if you would like more information, please leave them in the comments. If you have any ideas for something that you'd like to see me try to do with this paracord or anything else, let me know. Thanks for watching.